Hey there, it's Mart with MaxQ, and yeah, I'm still a little on the sick side. I expected this was going to last 3 weeks, and I'm getting better, and it won't be too much longer. I think I'll be back to normal, whatever that is for me. But still, the brain isn't the most effective. Here's today's date, by the way, and this is the J-3 Cub Restoration project, which is starting to turn very white in here because of all this Dacron fabric. So that's kind of encouraging. This is also Wednesday with that date of the 5th. Normally the videos come out on Monday, but of course last week, because I was so sick, I didn't get it out till Wednesday. And then this week I had the big computer, which is where I do all the video editing and prepare the thumbnails and where I do everything really, it up and quit working a couple, well, 4 days ago or so. And I just today got a replacement. This is a desktop computer, which is kind of interesting. I'll ramble on here for a moment because I'd used laptops for many years, as we transitioned away from desktops back in the old days. But then I actually switched back to a desktop about 3 years ago, and I'm actually loving it. I've got a big 34-inch curved monitor. It's fantastic, and I actually enjoy a desktop more than a laptop now, which is kind of funny because I would not have thought that 5 or 6 years ago. But anyway, I buy refurbished from Amazon, and this is an older desktop with a pretty good sized processor in it and a terabyte of solid state drive. And it's 320 bucks for the processor, and I've got the monitor already and all the other accessories. So for a fairly inexpensive and quick replacement, I'm back up and running literally as of just the last couple hours because it got delivered this afternoon. It's this evening now, and I'm still uploading programs and such so that I can do the rest of the work for yet tonight, the editing and create the thumbnail and all that. So anyway, always a challenge, and so between the computer and some other things and still being kind of sick, I haven't quite got as much done as I would have hoped. However, there is a bunch to see. But before we get to looking at the fabric though on the wings, I thought I would share a little bit about some hot knife soldering iron things that I use at various times. I did wind up using this hot knife. So this is a dedicated hot knife that I got several years ago, not really for aircraft Dacron fabric, but for cutting Cordura. And but it works really, really well for sure on the Dacron because the Dacron is much lighter, and it cuts really well with heat. The Dacron does, and it sears the edge, makes a really nice opening. So anytime you can use a hot knife instead of just cutting a hole, you get such a much better look. So I wound up doing, and I'll show this in a minute, but I used a hot knife where I had glued to the leading edge and had a little bit of a wave in my pinked edge. So I taped my long steel rule up and used this and cleaned it off, then got the little bit of Dacron that I cut off and the glue that was holding it, and it looks fantastic. It's going to be really, really nice. We'll go over a little bit more of that in detail here in a moment so you can understand exactly what I did there. But anyway, this hot knife is a fantastic tool. The one thing I would say about any of these soldering iron type things though is you can do a ton of damage really fast with these. So because the fabric just disappears basically. So you have to be really cautious, and if you can't be cautious, you shouldn't be using them, that's for sure, because you can make a mess out of things. Anyway, the hot knife is awesome. And then I'll also show over there on the butt rib where I put the fabric on it and where the cable for the aileron passes through there. I cut off a bolt and put it in this. This is a Harbor Freight plastic welding iron basically. It gets hotter than a soldering iron. But I took the end out of it. Sometimes I use the end that comes with it, but I cut off the head of a bolt and I stuck a bolt in there. So I have a nice little, just a round hole punch of 1/4 inch diameter. It gets a little bit larger when you're using the heat and it burns. So it's a little bit bigger than a 1/4 inch hole, but sometimes that's really handy. But again, with any of these, you touch the fabric in the wrong spot and the fabric is gone. So, and then the last one is just a regular soldering iron. And this one's kind of handy because it actually has a temperature control on it. And I use it. The predominant way that I used it on the Super Cub, and I'll be doing the same thing here, is for creating the drain holes in the wing. And but you have to be really, really careful again because you can get out of control. So after I mark where the locations are, I use this fender washer and I get the fender washer in place. I can't remember, I may have even taped it in place every time. This is after the wing is painted and all done. And so I think I even taped them in place so that they can't move on me. And then now you have a large protected area for trying to get the soldering iron, the point of the soldering iron, to go in the hole and burn you a hole in the fabric. But the washer keeps you from getting wild with it. It stays right where it's supposed to be. So it actually makes the process quite simple, and you get a beautiful hole when you use something like this. Burns, right through the color coat, the fill, and the fabric. Super clean, super easy. But again, I would never do this just freehand by hand trying to get up there and hit the right spot. The washer really does the trick. I'll also show, I was supposed to have it over here. I didn't. We'll walk over there in a second. I'll show you one more thing that I use that's definitely a renegade type item to use these days. Most people don't and think that's a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea, but anyway. So that's the story there. So let's take a look then at the wings. So I guess, actually, first off, like when I showed a picture last video of the wing, because there was no fabric on the bottom side, the lights behind shining through that fabric, you were getting shadows from all of the structure. And it was pretty funky looking. But now I've got some fabric just laying here on the other side. It is not glued in place yet, but that knocks down all of that, diffuses that light, and so now it looks more like a wing. It looks really good. And so the other thing that I've done since last video is the other wing is also to that same point. The top surface is completely glued on. It's all pre-shrunk or shrunk at the 250 degree initial shrink level. The leading edges have been, I guess you can't see the leading edge there. Let's go over to this one again. The leading edges, I went over them with a little bit higher heat to make sure that any wrinkles on the leading edge, because I have this glued area here, and then I have a glued area on the other side, which maybe if we flip up some fabric here, you can see the actual terminating point, the end of the fabric. And so the focus is to get the fabric right where I want it, but not necessarily worry about the wrinkles that might occur on the leading edge. So you take those wrinkles out then with the heat, and that worked just fine. And I did that on both wings already. And then on both wings, as I was mentioning with the hot knife, I went ahead and cut this edge so that it is, it's perfectly straight. And because this fabric will then wrap around, and where that green line is, if that was a pinked edge and it was wavy a little bit, you'd be able to see it most likely if you're looking close, if you pay attention to that stuff. And I realize, again, most people probably don't. I'm a bit of a fanatic about the details, so I'm always looking at that kind of stuff. So now this is going to look fantastic because, and as I've mentioned before, you get a little bit of an edge sort of with a hot knife, but less so than what the fabric when it's manufactured has. And I've gone over that with the iron then to make sure that it's just as smooth as it can be. So actually, I think this is going to be a really, really good solution for creating that straight line. So I have that done on both wings. We'll pull this up here real quick, and you can kind of see down there that that one's done as well. So these bottom skins then, I have cut off the manufactured edge because I am using basically all of the fabric. The full 72 inches is getting used, so I can have the maximum amount of overlap of fabric on that leading edge because I just think it makes it look nicer. So by the way, the GoPro is getting a little low on battery here, but here's the thing that a lot of people would tell you not to use. So the heat gun, this one's from the 70s, and we used to use them back in the 70s and 80s on fabric. And then there are some issues. It's a little harder. Well, it's much harder actually to know how much heat you're actually putting in a specific spot with one of those. So you have to be extremely careful, but they will throw heat into a place you just can't get an iron. So at times they're really, really handy. But again, I'm not going to recommend anyone to use them because you can get into trouble with them. So, but I'm willing to take that risk because first off, I do some experimenting to make sure I know how much heat's coming out and whether or not I have to have any concern about damaging the fabric. And then you just also go extremely cautiously. So anyway, very soon I'll be able to have these lower surfaces glued on and shrunk, which means I will soon be on to rib stitching. So that's pretty exciting. And then here inside the spray booth where the fuselage is, I also got the new floorboards. The second set have now been stained. Well, all the holes have been drilled and they've been stained, and you can see that wood grain really looks cool. I think I'm probably going to have to do one more fine sanding and another coat of the satin clear coat on there. But otherwise, these floorboards, they fit better and they look better than the first ones. So I think that was well worth it. And again, I mentioned in the previous video that I wanted an extra set, like a template set of floorboards anyway. So now the ones that I had originally built, I will hang on to and use for templating floorboards in the future for other Cubs, which looks like I may have several of those to do here in the future. So anyway, so that's basically it. I'm not gonna ramble on too long. My voice still isn't quite right. I'm still tired. And the battery's gonna run out here on the GoPro here pretty soon. But real happy with the progress on the wings, and should be able to, again, get these lower surfaces on here quite soon and be on to stitching and taping of these wings. And then the fabric for the fuselage is here on the table, and so we'll be also transitioning to fabric on the fuselage here real soon as well. So anyway, and I think going forward might actually just wind up doing videos on Wednesdays now, since I've done two in a row on Wednesdays. Maybe that's my sign that I'm supposed to move them to Wednesdays. So we'll see what happens, but at least I got the computer back up and running. I should be able to get this edited here yet this evening and get it up on this Wednesday. And so always kind of fun, challenging to solve problems and get back up and running, especially with the computer. But anyway, so there you go. There's an update, and we're still moving forward, and that is a good thing. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.